3 spine-chilling true weekend getaway stories. Cursed escapes that revealed sinister secrets. David, Lisa, Tommy, and Mia rolled into the driveway of the Maplewood Inn, anticipation bubbling over. They were finally escaping the monotony of everyday life. The old Victorian's charms, roses crawling up the walls, and an inviting porch seemed almost too good to be true. Yet, Mr. Hargrove, the innkeeper, greeted them with an unsettling mix of warmth and something almost sinister lurking behind his smile. "Welcome, welcome. You're going to love it here," he crooned, but his eyes glinted like old coins in a dark alley. It wasn't until they settled into room 313 that the eerie veil of the inn began to wrap around them. The walls whispered, or was that just the wind? Flickering lights cast frantic shadows that danced on the sugar-sweet wallpaper. Dismissing it as fatigue, David felt uneasy. Yet when he caught the distant laughter of other guests, a hollow echo weaving through the hallways, his spine tingled. Who were these people, and why did they seem so distant? On their first night, a soft rustling drew David's attention. With a heart pounding like a jackhammer, he peered into the dark tinted mirror and swore his reflection lingered too long, a shadow smirking back at him. Creepy. But perhaps he was just tired, right? Lisa was quick to reassure him, but her smile had faded. Then they heard it. The unsettling tales that featured visiting families swallowed by the inn. Lost souls that checked in but never checked out. Was it just a sinister folktale? Or was there truth rooted in those chilling words? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as dread gripped them, news from the front desk sent shockwaves through their family. Another guest had vanished. It was barely hours since he checked in. David's gut twisted into knots. With a feigned calmness, Mr. Hargrove reassured them. No need to worry, just an unfortunate incident. The neighborhood is safe. Yet the promise felt paper-thin, fluttering in the winds of growing paranoia. David exchanged a worried glance with Lisa, who felt an icy dread clawing at her gut. Night after night, Tommy drew spirals that resembled the inn's layout, while Mia scuttled around, whispering to the lady in the shadows. How could he shake the feeling of eyes monitoring their every move? Shadows loomed longer, creeping just beyond the edges of their vision. And oh, the creaking! The inside as if echoing some dark memory, amplifying their distress. As they prepared to exit, the air thickened, and a shadow shifted in the stairwell, lurking, watching. Was it his imagination? No, it was there, alive and palpable. The door to room 313 creaked slowly, beckoning, swallowing the light outside. With each heartbeat, the echoes of their indecision rang loud. The weight of a choice that would seal their fate was heavy. Would they step into the abyss? Or could they break free before the inn claimed them too, just like it had so many before? David's breath caught in his throat as the door to room 313 beckoned like a siren lost in the fog. The hallway felt alive, shadows warping and stretching, as if the walls themselves conspired to keep them there. Every inch he moved toward that door felt like a step deeper into quicksand. Lisa's face reflected pure terror, her eyes wide and glistening, caught between the urge to flee and the paralysis of fear. Should we go? David stammered, the doubt creeping in. His mind raced with visions of what might lurk beyond that threshold. Yet, before he could decide, Tommy's voice sliced through the tension. I think we should open it. It's just a room, right? There was defiance in his tone. He was the brave one, the daredevil among them, but tonight, his bravery seemed like folly. Mia turned, her small brown eyes seeking something beyond the door. She whispered softly. The ladyess waiting. Her innocent words struck at David's chest. Who was the lady? What did she want? Let us just talk to Mr. Hargrove again. Maybe he knows something, Lisa suggested, her voice shaky but laced with determination. They retreated, heading back down the creaking staircase, their footsteps echoing like distant memories. But the ground seemed to shake beneath them. As they stepped into the lobby, the atmosphere thickened like fog, pulling them under its weight. Mr. Hargrove stood behind the front desk, fiddling with the keys, a smile plastered on his face that no longer felt welcoming. It was predatory, a hunter preparing for a feast. "Back so soon?" he drawled, each word dripping with something sickening. "Did you find what you were looking for?" "No," David replied, forcing the words out. "Just wanted to know more about," but Hargrove interrupted him like an impatient child. "About the room? Or the inn? Many secrets here, but they choose to remain quiet just like the lady." David swallowed hard, dread pooling in his gut. "What lady?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The previous guests," Mr. Hargrove said, tilting his head, that cold smile never wavering. "There's a reason they don't leave. They're here just as you are. The lady in the shadows cares for her home, she's protective. Very protective." A chill swept through the lobby, snatching the warmth from their skin. Tommy glanced at Mia, who nodded slightly, as if she understood. "Does that mean they're trapped?" Lisa breathed, terror marking her features. "Oh, they're here by choice, dear," Hargrove replied with a laugh that sounded like brittle glass breaking. "Once the inn finds you, you'll never want to leave. It's a home to those who feel lost. Like you." As the innkeeper gazed at them, something stirred behind him. Dark shapes flitted across the walls. Were they reflections or souls caught in torment? David's heart raced. "Run!" he shouted suddenly, grabbing Tommy and Mia's hands as he pulled them toward the door. But the lobby shifted, warping like a funhouse mirror. The exit seemed to move farther away with each frantic step. Panic surged, thick and suffocating. They were trapped. "Keep going," Lisa screamed, her voice barely cutting through the mounting fear. In that moment, as they pushed against the invisible barrier, David caught a glimpse of something in the corner of his eye, figures in the shadows, faces contorted with longing, their whispers rising as if begging for release. The door loomed ahead, distorted and ominous. Just when he thought it was their escape, a hand shot out from the darkness, a pale, ghostly hand. "You can't leave," it hissed, a voice heavy with sorrow. "You have to stay," and then everything fell silent as the darkness closed in around them. What had they awakened? What were they really escaping from? David stumbled backward, the chill of fear racing from his head to his toes. The hand, where had it come from? It felt like ice against his skin, and for a moment he froze, caught in the gaze of something ancient and sorrowful. "David! Move!" Lisa screamed, her voice slicing through the thick, suffocating fear like a siren in a storm. It jolted him back to life. They dashed forward, pushing against an unseen wall, muscles burning as they fought against the crushing terror. Suddenly the room twisted. Shadows coiled around them like serpents, darting from the corners as whispers clawed at their sanity. "Stay, stay," they called, their voices twisted, laced with despair. David felt Mia's grip tighten in his hand, her small fingers clammy against his palm. "Please, let us go," she whimpered, the innocent sound laced with a primal fear. But where was the exit? Each frantic step felt like running through thick soup, the wayward shadows taunting them, bending the laws of space and time. The door nestled just ahead seemed to shimmer, yet abruptly it vanished, replaced by a wall pulsing with darkness. The inn itself appeared alive, shifting shapes to entrap them in a grotesque embrace. "Tommy!" Lisa shouted, but her voice melded into the cacophony that surrounded them. "Tommy!" David glanced back. He could barely see Tommy's pale face through the encroaching gloom. "I'm here," he gasped. I can't see." Another hand shot out, this time from the shadows near the desk. A figure emerged, draped in a flowing gown that seemed to absorb the light. A long mane of dark hair obscured her face, the glint in her eyes resembling the duality of sorrow and wrath. "The lady, was this her?" "You should not have come here," she warned, her voice echoing like a fading bell. "You are welcome to stay, or you will never leave." David's heart raced. The weight of her words crashed over him, suffocating. "No, we want to go," he cried, the desperate plea barely escaping his lips. The lady took a step forward, and sparks of static electricity danced around her. With each step, more shadows formed at her feet, rising like a dark tide, eager to swallow them whole. Mia whimpered and tugged at David's arm, fear radiating off her small frame. "Run!" David yelled again, and they moved as one, crashing through the oppressive air. They had to push through. They had to escape this nightmare. They sprinted toward where the exit should have been, but the walls shifted once more, forming a labyrinth that mocked their every effort. A fleeting glimpse of the outside world flickered behind the shadows. The safe, warm glow of the streetlights outside could be felt, but it felt as far away as the moon. "Help!" Lisa shouted suddenly, voice raw with fear. David turned, but it was too late. The shadows had licked up around her, swallowing her scream like a candle's flame snuffed out by the wind. A moment of stunned silence fell over them before urgency ignited again. "We can't leave her," Tommy urged, panic etched on his face. "Do you really think she is gone?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. The little girl had known. David's blood ran cold at her clarity. "No, we're not leaving her," he said, boldness rising within him. "But if this place is alive, we have to find a way to beat it at its own game." They turned back into the depth of shadows, hearts pounding, limbs trembling. But what if they didn't find Lisa? What if they became the next to linger within these cursed walls, forever echoing as sorrowful whispers? Suddenly, the inn groaned, an ominous rumble beneath their feet, and through the turmoil, David felt the lady's presence looming ever closer. Why had they come here? What awaited them in the heart of this deception? What if we're already too late? Tommy's voice quivered, an unspoken fear carving its path between them. The darkness closed in tighter, choking every last breath. The hunt was on, but now they were among the hunted. What awaited them in the shadows? Would they find Lisa or something much worse? As they stepped deeper into the abyss of shadows, the air thickened like molasses around them. David's heart hammered loudly, each beat a reminder of their fragile existence. Mia clung to him, her breath shaky and rapid, like a bird caught in a trap. "Where do we go?" Tommy's voice quailed, fear tearing through its edges. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive, and with every moment of hesitation, it shimmered with anticipation, pressing down on them like a weight far too great to bear. The walls twisted, and for a moment, he could have sworn he saw Lisa's silhouette, an echo of movement fading like mist. "This way," David yelled, tearing down a side passage that appeared. The shadows darted ominously, whispering unholy promises of despair, trying to wrap around their ankles like serpents. Would they follow? The corridor twisted again, a nightmare of mirrors reflecting fragmented visions. David stumbled, hearing the faint echo of a laugh, a high, shrill cackle that sent shivers down his spine. "Did you hear that?" Mia whimpered, her voice breaking. "Stay close," he barked back, adrenaline flooding his veins. As they sprinted, they caught sight of a door framed in flickering light. "There," Tommy pointed, and hope surged within David, pulling them forward like a moth to a flame. But as they approached, the door morphed. The light flickered, revealing a grotesque face carved into its surface. It grinned, slowly opening wider, as if inviting them in. David recoiled, instinctively pulling Mia and Tommy back, the chill sinking through his bones. "Do we dare?" Tommy breathed, glancing back at the encroaching shadows. "We don't have a choice. We need to find Lisa," David shouted, fear wresting control of his voice. But part of him tugged at another thought. What if stepping through that door was the ultimate mistake? As if sensing his conflict, the face twisted further, forcing David to look away. The shadows surged forward, their whispers morphing into words, dark and enticing. "Stay with us, you'll never leave again." Mia's grip tightened. "David," she whimpered, her small eyes glistening with tears. "No, we're not staying," he growled, determination igniting within him once more. He took a deep breath, then pushed forward, his hand outstretched. He didn't know what awaited them, but knew they couldn't succumb to fear. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, and what remained was nothing but a cold stone wall. Their breaths quickened, panic setting in. The laughter from earlier returned, echoing through the corridors. "David!" Tommy yelled, voice near a breaking point. "There might be a way out over there." He pointed to the far corner where a dim light flickered like a dying candle. They bolted towards it, mindful of the shadows clawing at their heels. David felt something brush against his ankle, cold and clammy, but he refused to look back. Whatever lurked in the darkness didn't need to trap them again. As they neared the light, it widened, illuminating a staircase that spiraled upwards. David felt a glimmer of hope, a chance, a way out. "Up!" he shouted, and they raced toward it. Each step a new surge of energy, every creak echoing ghostly terrors behind them. Just as they reached the bottom step, the darkness erupted, a mass of shadows swirling, blocking their retreat. A cacophony of whispers surrounded them, 1,000 tiny voices crying out for attention, begging to be released. Their sorrow hung thick, choking the air. "Go," he commanded, pushing Mia up the staircase. But in the corner of his eye, he saw movement, a flash of movement that shouldn't have been there. His gut twisted with unease as the shadows lunged forward, gripping Tommy's wrist. "David!" Tommy screamed, eyes widening in panic as he was dragged back into the dark abyss. "No, let him go!" David yelled, lunging forward, but could only watch as Tommy vanished in the thickening darkness, swallowed whole. Mia cried out, but David clamped his hand over her mouth, not knowing how to explain the horror of what had just occurred. They had lost one. The shadows pressed forward behind them, relentless, hungry for more. With one last look back, David recoiled, his pulse pounding in his ears like a war drum. They couldn't afford to hesitate. They had to escape to find Lisa. But as they climbed into the light, a single thought echoed in his mind: what if they were merely heading deeper into salvation's trap? What else awaited them at the top? Fear coiled tightly in David's chest. He had to keep moving. They had to get out. But what if leaving meant something worse lurked outside? Something darker? What awaited them at the top of the staircase? Would they find answers or only more questions? The staircase spiraled like a serpent, winding upward into an uncertain fate. David pushed Mia forward, her small frame trembling against his side. Each creak beneath their feet seemed to mock their escape, echoing down the well of shadows they left behind. The air grew humid, thick with anticipation and fear, squeezing around them like a vice. David stole a glance at Mia. Her eyes shone with fear, reflecting an innocence slowly eroding under the weight of despair. "We have to keep going," he urged, gripping her hand tightly. She nodded, her lips a thin line of determination, but he saw the tremors coursing through her small fingers. As they ascended, the light above became more defined, a swirling glow that beckoned them closer. But with each step they took, whispers fluttered through the air, prickling David's skin like 1,000 needles. The sound of their names floated around them. David, Mia, come back, voices distorted and twisted, layers of trackless despair that wrapped around his mind like a fog. "What are they saying?" Mia panicked, her eyes darting around. "David, I don't like this. They're just trying to trick us," he shouted, forcing confidence he didn't feel. Each echo grew sharper, more insistent, and it clawed at his resolve. Suddenly, the light at the top pulsed, and the voices quieted for just a heartbeat, as if they too feared what lay ahead. David reached the platform, breathless, his heart pounding in his chest. The room before them was an open space, flickering with the warmth of that ominous glow. But it wasn't warmth that welcomed them. An oppressive presence filled the air, heavy and intrusive. The walls shimmered with an eerie luminescence, bending reality around them. A feeling of dread crept in, vibrating through David's bones, feeding on the fear that clung desperately to his soul. "Where are we?" Mia whispered, her voice quivering. The light brightened, illuminating a circle of strange symbols etched into the floor, pulsing in rhythm with the oppressive beat in David's heart. This wasn't just any room, it was a chamber, a center of something ancient and dark. And with every breath he took, the designs shifted, the colors darkening like blood pooling in the corners. We need to leave, David breathed, panic rising within him, a cold sweat forming at the nape of his neck. His instincts screamed to turn back, but retreat was an option long gone. Before he could act, shadows erupted from the walls, swirling around them, morphing into shapes that clawed at their minds. Faces, twisted, anguished faces, familiar and forgotten. David's heart dropped. One distinctly mirrored Tommy's, wide-eyed and terrified. "Help me, Mia, run," he shouted, and they darted through the entrance to the chamber. But the shadows were quicker. They leaped and grasped at Mia's feet, dragging her down. "No," David yelled, catching her arm just in time, wrenching her away from the dark grasp that stretched hungrily, begging them to surrender. They broke free, but only to find the hallway behind them had vanished, consumed by the very shadows they had just escaped. Panic rocketed through David's veins. He was trapped. The oppressive presence around them grew heavier, filling his lungs with dread. "What do we do?" Mia's voice shook as she glanced back, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "I don't know," David shouted, fear bubbling beneath his skin. They had faced the shadows but were now lost in a new battleground. The whispers returned, louder. An avalanche of sound that knocked the breath from his lungs. "Stay with us, find the truth, stop," he yelled, clenching his fists. "You don't control us." But the shadows only swarmed closer, a suffocating blanket of despair that threatened to swallow them whole. His mind raced. There had to be something, a way to break free, but every second spent here meant more darkness creeping in. Then he noticed it, a flickering symbol on the ground, pulsing in rhythm. Felt as if it were alive. "Mia, the markings. Can you see them?" "Yes," she answered, her gaze locked onto the glowing symbol. What if? Hesitation gripped David. What if engaging with the markings was the key? But could they trust it? The shadows seemed to churn, watching, waiting for him to make his move. Each second became an eternity. Their fate hanging by a thread. A decision loomed, one that could bind them further or lead to their escape. What awaited as he approached the light? Would it lead to salvation or a final descent into madness? David took a trembling step closer to the glowing symbol, his heart pounding. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of lost souls urging him forward. "Touch it, David. It's the only way." Mia's voice cut through the chaos, her small frame trembling in terror. The flickering symbol emitted a pulse, drawing his focus like a moth to a flame. "Just hold on to me," he whispered, squeezing Mia's hand tighter, trying to drown out the dread that threatened to overwhelm them. Each beat of the symbol seemed to connect to the rhythm of his racing heart. With a resolute nod, David extended his palm toward the luminescent icon. But just as his fingertips grazed its surface, a wave of heat surged through him, electrifying and paralyzing. Faces appeared around him, swirling like a tempest, a parade of sorrow and regret, mouths opening and closing, pleading for help, their eyes hollow, vacant. "David, don't!" Mia shrieked, her voice breaking through the haze. But it was too late. The connection had been made. The symbol flared blindingly bright, and the dark shadows recoiled as if burned by its illumination. In that instant, the shadows shrieked, a haunting sound that echoed through the chamber as if losing a part of themselves. The oppressive weight around them lessened. But that relief was short-lived. The faces surged forward, a tide of anguish and despair crashing over them, pulling them into the depths of darkness. David stumbled, losing his grip on reality as the voices spilled forth, their stories of torment echoing in his mind. "Help us, you must know the truth." Their urgency was palpable, their sorrow spilling into David's thoughts, drowning him in dread. "No," he yelled, shaking his head violently. He could feel Mia beside him, her grip slipping as they were pulled deeper into the shadows. "We have to fight it. Focus on the light." With steel determination, he wrapped his other arm around Mia, anchoring their beings together. He concentrated on the radiant symbol, imagining its warmth enveloping them, battling the engulfing darkness. The warmth inside him intensified, and he repeated the words in his mind. "The truth will not bind us. It will free us." The faces faltered, and for a fleeting moment, the whispers grew faint. David seized the opportunity, dragging Mia towards the pulsating symbol with all his might, pulling against the suffocating despair. They fought, stepping deeper into the glowing light, and the chamber shuddered violently around them. Suddenly, the light exploded outward, a shockwave that sent the shadows howling in retreat. David felt the crushing weight lift as they were thrust into a blinding brightness, tumbling through an endless void. When the light faded, they found themselves standing at the edge of a fog-laden forest. Cold air stung their skin, and the world was eerily silent, the only sound being their labored breaths. Where are we?" Mia asked, her eyes scanning the tangled trees, the shadows weaving around the trunks as if they had come back to life. David turned around, only to see the remnants of the chamber behind them now shrouded in mist, its symbol flickering ominously in the distance. Panic surged within him. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving," he said, glancing over at Mia. As they made their way through the misty path, the tranquility of the scene felt wrong. The forest was alive, but not with the gentle murmur of nature. It whispered secrets, calling them closer, urging them to uncover the truth hidden within. But they were not alone. A figure loomed in the distance, barely illuminated by the remaining light. A single word escaped the figure's lips, twisting the air around them. "Stay." David's breath caught in his throat. What had they stumbled into? Was this another trap, or a new chance for escape? With uncertainty gripping him, he clenched Mia's hand tighter, ready to face whatever loomed ahead. But they had only just begun to graze the surface of the mysteries waiting to be unveiled. What would the forest reveal about their past? And what creatures stirred within the shadows, watching? With hungry eyes, the figure in the distance took a step closer, the fog swirling around its form like a shroud. David's heart thundered in his chest as he squinted to see the details: a gaunt face, long twisted limbs, its eyes glinting with a hunger that made his skin crawl. "Stay," it echoed again, voice low and rasping, each syllable seeped in a sense of dread. It wasn't inviting, it was demanding. "David, we shouldn't stay." Mia tugged on his arm, fear filling her voice. "Let us go. Now." "No, we can't run. We need to see what it wants." The words felt heavy in David's mouth, a decision wrought with deep uncertainty. They were dragged into this reality by the glowing symbol. He hadn't come this far to turn tail now. The figure shifted, its form blurring then sharpening with the mists. "The fate of your souls rests here," it rasped, the voice layered with echoes that filled the air, reverberating through the trees. "Decisions linger. The truth waits." David felt a chill creep down his spine, as if the very moisture in the air were freezing him. "What truth?" he called out, his voice shaky but steadying. "What do you want from us?" "Your choices have consequences," the figure murmured, moving forward one more step. Its face twisted in a mockery of a smile, revealing teeth sharp like knives. "They lead to revelations, but not all truths are meant to be uncovered." Mia's grip tightened on his arm, her breath hitching as she scanned the dark trees around them. Branches twisted like clawed hands reaching for them, and the shadows themselves felt alive, pulsating with a dark energy. Suddenly, a low keening cry broke the tense atmosphere, piercing the silence like glass shattering. David whipped around to see shadows coiling out from the darkened trees, slithering towards them, faces emerging like trapped souls, mouths agape in silent screams. "Mia, we have to move," David shouted, panic igniting in his chest. He turned back to the figure, which stood unfazed, mere inches away now. "What do you know about us? What have we done?" The figure leaned in so close that David could feel its rancid breath on his face. "You will find the answers in the depths of this forest. But be warned, some answers are best left buried." Before he could respond, the figure reached out, thin fingers brushing against his cheek, leaving a burning sensation that made him recoil. Action propelled him forward, dragging Mia with him down the path. They ran blindly through the fog, branches clawing at their clothes, snagging on fabric and skin as they fled. Panic fueled their momentum, but the whispers of the forest grew louder, intertwining with the shadows, taunting them. They are meant to suffer for what they know, the voices cried, a symphony of despair that echoed through every corner of the forest. They will not escape. David, look! Mia pointed desperately ahead. A flickering light glowed through the thick trees, beckoning them. Could it be another symbol? A sign of hope? David hesitated, but the shadows were closing in. Just ahead, the light pulsed rhythmically, as if alive, much like the symbol that had drawn them from the chamber. Come on, we have to find it, he urged, pulling Mia along as they barreled forward, certain they could outrun the darkness. But as they approached the light, unease swallowed David whole. The air thickened, the ground beneath them trembled. Was the light a trap? Would it be the escape they sought, or the final snare that would pull them into eternal darkness? They burst into the clearing, the light brighter than day, leaving the shadows clawing at the edges. But as they stepped inside, breathless and desperate, the illumination twisted, revealing shapes not light, but forms, tangled and writhing. All the forgotten souls the figure had spoken of. Caught in an embrace of horror, David's heart sank. What had they walked into? Do you see now? A voice crooned from the depths of the light, both familiar and terrifying. With the pulse of the forest thrumming around them, dread enveloped him. What lay ahead was unfurling like the roots of a great tree, intertwining, their fates with horrors yet untold. As the ground shook beneath them, David realized neither the shadows nor the light held all the answers. Only a deeper darkness awaited them, stretching endlessly with secrets begging to be discovered. But would the truth bring salvation or doom? The forest seemed to sigh, whispering its haunting promise. And in that moment, David knew this was just the beginning. The shrill voice echoed around them, weaving its way through the trees, clinging to David's skin like a wet cloth. Do you see now? It taunted, each word laced with glee. He squinted into the blinding light, desperate to spot the source but only finding flickering shapes, souls entwined in torment, their faces stretched in silent screams. An overwhelming dread wrapped around him, squeezing the breath from his lungs. The forest wasn't just a backdrop. It was alive, thriving on their fear. Mia, we need to back away, he whispered, his voice trembling. But she seemed frozen in place, eyes wide, mesmerized. David, her voice quaked. It feels so familiar here. Like we belong, don't say that. This isn't right. His urgency rose like a tidal wave in his chest, battering against the walls of dread. He tried to pull her back, but she stood rooted, as if caught in a spell. What the hell was happening? Panic crested, and with a sudden yank, he ripped her from the haze that enveloped them. We need to go. Now. They stumbled back, the thrumming of the light reverberating through their bones. The forms began to reach out, thin hands extending like bony branches trying to grasp them. David's heart raced. The light pulsed again, and a blinding fear shot through him. An icy hand of doubt clawed at his thoughts. What if they were too late? The whispers crescendoed, filling the clearing. You have entered, the truth cannot be undone. Without thinking, David turned, dragging Mia behind him, the shadows lunging as they rushed back into the dark embrace of the forest. The way seemed to twist and curl, becoming a labyrinth of despair, each turn echoing the plight of those lost souls. Mia, David called, glancing back to find her still reeling from the effects of the light. Focus. We have to get to the edge before the darkness takes us. I can't shake it, she gasped, her voice cracking with fear. The trees loomed higher now, their branches like skeletal fingers that clawed at the sky, blocking out the moonlight. The shadows were relentless, snapping at their heels, urging them in a suffocating dance. The very air felt heavy with dread, pressing down like a weight. Mia, please, fight it, he shouted, desperation coursing through him. When she looked at him, his heart twisted. Her eyes were dull, reflecting the horror of everything surrounding them. They sprinted deeper, the ground uneven, roots snaking out to trip them. David could feel the shadows drawing closer, brushing against him, whispering secrets he dared not hear. Just when he felt they might find safety, the forest shifted again. Ahead, the path split into two. One side bathed in the tormented glow, the other swallowed by darkness. Which way? He screamed, breathless, feeling the pressure of time crush down upon him. Mia faltered, teetering on the brink of both paths. I don't know, David. I feel it pulling me no. But even as he said it, he felt it too, a magnetic force drawing him toward the whispered secrets of the light. Before he could protest further, she dropped his hand, stepping toward the glow. Mia, don't. Her form blurred, caught in the dance of light and shadow, slipping into the very chasm of despair David feared most. He lunged forward, reaching for her, but a dark mist surrounded him, chilling him like ice. Mia! He screamed, just as the ground below him bucked violently, lifting him off his feet. He felt himself flying back, the shadows pushing, the forms screaming around him, faces twisted in agony. As everything spun, his grasp on reality loosened, and a final thought pierced through the chaos. He could lose her forever, and then the world went black. When David's consciousness flickered back, he was lying on the cold, damp ground, gasping. The only sound was the soft rustling of leaves above him. He struggled to sit up, pain coursing through his body like flames. The darkness around him whispered, lights flickering in the distance. He turned to see the clearing again, the dark void swirling with energy and Mia nowhere in sight. What did he just become part of? And what had he unleashed? As the forest murmured its forgotten tales, a chilling realization seeped into his bones. He would have to confront the truth alone, a truth that could change him forever. But in that terror, something stirred within the shadows, and a question whispered back. Was Mia truly gone? Or was she waiting for him to uncover the secrets hidden in the light? David's eyes darted around, searching desperately for any sign of Mia. The air was thick with a foul scent, like something long dead, twisting around his senses and pulling him deeper into panic. He could hear the forest whispering, mocking him with echoes of lost souls. Focus, David, he muttered, forcing himself to rise. Each movement sent pains shooting through his body, but he pushed through. Fear took hold, surging like electricity, urging him to find her. The ground felt unstable beneath him, uneven terrain filled with gnarled roots and stones that jutted up like broken teeth. He squinted into the darkness, terrified that the light from before might return, but nothing came except an eerie silence. Was it really gone, or just waiting for him to step into its trap? As he moved, the shadows seemed to pulse and writhe. They whispered her name, an echo of despair that nodded in his stomach. Mia, he called, voice cracking. Where are you? Each step echoed in the stillness, a reminder of his solitude. He had to remember what she said, that it all felt familiar to her. Would that familiarity guide him to her? Or was it a siren song leading him into a deeper abyss? He took a breath and made a choice. He needed direction. He turned back toward where they'd been, towards the fading glow that had consumed her. The torn branches shifted overhead, blocking out the moonlight, but flashes of light flickered in the distance. David moved cautiously, avoiding roots that lashed out as if alive. The atmosphere was electric, alive with tension that thrilled yet terrified him. Step by step, breaths came quicker, heart racing. The quiet was oppressive, pressing down on him like a weight. Suddenly, a rustle behind him. He spun around, adrenaline surging. Nothing, only darkness and the weight of the silence cradling his fear. He shook his head, willing away the paranoia. Mia, he yelled out again, voice breaking. Please answer me. A low growl rumbled in the distance, deep and guttural. The sound sent cold shivers racing through his veins. His heart thundered a warning. Something was out there, watching. He pressed on, urgency commandeering his every movement. The flickering light grew brighter, illuminating twisted trees that loomed like monsters in the dark. Was it a trap, or his only hope? As he approached the clearing, he hesitated, shadows dancing across the space. The glow beckoned, hushed promises held within its brightness. He felt the tug of it, the seductive whispers wrapping around him. Step into the light, they urged. But a flash of Mia's face came to him, her terror, her plea. He closed his eyes, pushing back against the urge to go forward. No, he shouted defiantly, turning away from the light. But the shadows lunged, wrapping around his legs, pulling him down. Mia, he cried, fear overwhelming him. Then, from behind him, he heard a voice, soft yet sharp, cutting through the murmur of the woods. David, he spun around, breath hitching in his throat. There, drifting at the edge of the light, stood Mia, her hair a wild halo around her face. Beads of sweat glistened on her brow, eyes wide, pupils tight with terror that mirrored his own. Help me, she whispered, reaching out toward him, but the dark tendrils snaked around her ankles, pulling her back. No. He surged forward, only to be met with a solid wall of shadow that froze him in his tracks. Mia, stay away, she cried, desperation coursing through her voice. You don't understand. The light, it's a trap. His heart sank. The truth drummed through him. Whatever waited there in the glow wasn't salvation. They were playing against something far more sinister. Then we need to fight it together, he shouted, pushing against the grip of despair that tightened around him. But he felt her slipping further away, shimmering like a mirage. In that moment, fear twisted in his gut like a knife. If he couldn't reach her, I won't leave you, he yelled, and the shadows shrieked, darkness gnashing around him. Before David could react, the forest let out a deafening howl, and everything went silent. In that void, he could feel something watching, something ancient and hungry. The shadows began to recede, drawing back like a tide, and a single thought screamed inside of him. What was happening to Mia? And then, just as he started to move toward the fading light, a chilling voice echoed from the shadows. You are not meant to be here, she belongs to us now. David's heart dropped at the revelation, panic surging once again. Would he lose her forever, or could he wrest her from the darkness? A shiver coursed through him as he braced for the confrontation ahead, knowing that the very heartbeat of the forest would determine their fate. Could he uncover the deadly secrets hidden in a light that was itself a lie? David's heart raced as he fought against the shadows clinging to him, a tenacious embrace that promised to tighten with every hesitant step. The words of the forest hissed around him, chilling him to the bone. She belongs to us now. Fear ignited an unyielding resolve within him. He would not let Mia become a mere echo lost within the woods. Focus, David. You need to find a way to break this curse, he whispered fiercely to himself, heart hammering like a drum. The shadows hissed and whispered, taunting him as he staggered toward Mia. Her silhouette flickered between the darkness and light, fighting against the tendrils that recoiled from his defiance. Mia, David shouted, pushing past the unyielding darkness. Hold on. I'm coming for you. The shadows thrashed violently, their strength surging to drive him back. But love like his was a powerful force. With every ounce of his willpower, the darkness began to recede. Each step he took felt like a battle, the weight of despair clawing at his soul. But the sight of Mia, trembling, was all the motivation he needed. Just stay with me. Look at me, he called, voice cracking with emotion. He could feel her desperation, her will to fight against the grasping shadows. David, it's so strong you don't understand, she cried, her voice trembling. I won't give up on you, he shouted back, desperation clawing at his throat. Whatever is holding you, we can face it together. Mia's terrified gaze locked with his, and he could see the flicker of hope deep within her eyes. Find the light in this darkness. You can do it. Her voice, though shaky, carried a weight that pushed him forward. Suddenly, clarity struck him like a lightning bolt. The glowing light that had once beckoned them could be their weapon. Not as bait for the shadows, but as a shield against them. He remembered how the shadows recoiled when he touched the pulsating symbol. Taking a deep breath, David charged toward the light, feeling it dancing at the edge of the clearing. He felt the shadows grow wild, a feral animal backed into a corner. There was fear in their movement, an urgency built on something deeper than mere darkness. "Step into the light," he yelled, pulling a surge of courage from the very depths of his being. The shadows howled as he urged the energy forward, urging the glow to resonate with the love he felt for Mia. "You don't control us." With a determined roar, David thrust himself into the radiance, undaunted by the chaos swirling around him. The light illuminated the forest, revealing not only the anguished souls caught in its grasp but also the way back to Mia. The glow was a bastion, enveloping him in a wash of warmth that pushed back the shadows. "Mia," he bellowed, beckoning her toward him, toward the sanctuary of their shared light. "Mia, come to me. You can break free." For a heartbeat, the shadows faltered, wavering in the brilliance of the light. He felt the unseen chains around Mia slacken as if the force of his love forged a path through the thick web of despair. In a dramatic resurgence, Mia broke free, stumbling toward him, and they caught one another, hands tightly entwined. They stood there, together in the light, holding back the approaching darkness. Together, they faced what they'd once feared, their energy rising as the shadows shrieked in pain at the newfound brilliance. "David, I can feel them retreating," Mia gasped, amazement intertwining with the threads of solace. "Yes, we can do this," he cried, their determination fusing, acting as a catalyst to drive back the depths of despair. With each pulse of the glow, the darkness shied away, drifting back into the thorns of the forest, where it belonged. Suddenly, the shadows screeched, agony echoing in their primal cries. The souls caught in the darkness turned towards David and Mia, their eyes filled with longing and yearning. "Release us," they begged in unison, voices bathed in sorrow. The shadowy figure that had loomed over them before roared in fury, "You cannot undo our bond." David tightened his grip around Mia, their heartbeats sinking like the ebb and flow of the ocean. "We can free you," he yelled, raising their entwined hands toward the flickering light. "We can set you free, too." The brilliance around them amplified, flashes of colors exploding like fireworks. Tendrils of shadows shrieked, twisting and swirling in desperate abandon. In a euphoric surge, David and Mia turned toward the tormented souls merging into the light. "Let go of your fear. Come with us to the light," Mia commanded, her voice ringing with conviction. With every ounce of love and courage they projected, the energy sizzled through the shadows. The spirits stirred, caught in the transition, grasping at the vibrance of the radiating warmth. "We want to be free," they cried. And suddenly, the very heart of the woods began to tremor, dark roots lifted from the ground as if responding to their emotions. A tide of light swelled, sweeping through the clearing like a cleansing breeze, coaxing the souls toward salvation. Together, David and Mia stood strong against the forces of fear. As the last echoes of the shadows disappeared into the depths, the forest sighed in relief, melting into a calm silence. "We did it," Mia whispered, turning to David, eyes glistening in the remnants of the light. Together, he replied, overwhelmed with gratitude. They looked around, the beings ascending toward the free light. The air felt lighter. The oppressive gloom deflated as dawn broke across the horizon, illuminating the woods with a golden hue. They turned, hand in hand, feeling the unmistakable warmth of freedom wash over them. With newfound strength, they turned toward the path leading out of the forest, aware that they had unraveled not just their fate, but that of so many others, and that together, they could face anything life might throw their way. As they stepped back into the sunlight, the shadows retreated for good, a soft sigh echoing behind them. They were no longer just survivors, they had become liberators. And as the Maplewood Inn faded from memory, David realized, some places are best left behind, while the bonds forged in fear can illuminate paths to freedom. This is your moment. Hit that subscribe button immediately to guarantee you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help the algorithm out big time. Flood the comments section with your emotions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear about this conclusion. Only true fans understand how crucial your support is right now.